Hey guys, Kelade here. Blizzard released their first iteration of patch 7.2.5 PTR notes yesterday, and there was zero changes on Fury Warrior so far. Of course, we're still a long ways off from the patch being released and Tomb of Sargeras being out. But let's get our concerns and issues heard before it's too late. First, I think everybody can agree that Fury Warriors are strong at the moment. There are a few factors that go into this, but let's talk about this first to understand why we're strong right now. Nighthold, as a raid, has some fights that are great for Fury. Any fight that has a long execute phase or a very frequent AoE burst will be really good to bring a Fury. The tier sets and trinkets also greatly help us with both our damage and enrage uptime. This plays into that feast and famine playstyle that Fury Warriors have found ourselves to be in. When you're geared and you have high enraged uptime, you're going to generate more rage, and this will lead to more enraged uptime, and as you guessed it, more rage and then more damage. There's a huge feedback loop of how strong Fury Warriors can scale due to this synergy. The tier bonuses from the 2-piece and 4-piece work together to not only increase the amount of times that we can get enraged, but also increase the duration of enrage. If played properly, we can hit over 90% enrage uptime with a 4-piece and a legendary helmet. The trinket, Convergence of Fates, also plays into this enrage uptime since it provides much more battlecry uptime and much more rage generated due to our last talent, Reckless Abandon. The trinket is also currently a band-aid solution to our execute problem at the moment, and I'll get to that in a bit. Draft of Souls, of course, is ridiculously strong due to how much buffs and CDs that warriors can use to stack with the active. There's no question that draft is OP on warriors, and Blizzard needs to consider this if they are going to actively consider the strength of active trinkets into the future. So, other classes in the game, sorry about that, but we single-handedly nerfed all active trinkets for the foreseeable future. This all leads up to another small factor from Nighthold, it's just how well the gear that can drop from the raid is for us. Of course, our tier items could be better itemized, but the fact that both of our business slot trinkets and all three of our business slot relics can drop from Nighthold, this allows to have fewer warriors who have really high eye levels of their biz gear. That is definitely something that should not be overlooked. Now, if we take away all of that Nighthold gear and go back to how Fury Warriors were in the beginning of patch 7.15, we can see the potential issues that might arise. Let's just get into the biggest issues first. Execute phase. Without tier 19, our enrage uptime on execute would be abysmal. Our reliable way of getting enraged, which is rampage, would never be used unless you took the massacre talent, which would hugely gimp our 100 to 20% damage. Less enrage uptime will lead to less rage generated, and that will eventually lead to less Juggernaut stacks being built. Also, if we were going to lose Convergence, the amount of battle cries that we would cast would be greatly diminished. Once again, greatly lowering the amount of executes that we can cast due to the regeneration from Reckless Abandon. And there will also be less battlecry buffed executes. Our execute phase really only shines when we're able to get high Juggernaut stacks and be able to buff those with our self buffs. Speaking of Juggernaut stacks, the buff duration of the stacks is a little bit too short at the moment. There are scenarios currently where you simply cannot keep the Juggernaut stacks. One notable example is Gul'dan's Storm of the Destroyer. Now, of course, there are ways around the mechanics by clever use of enraged regen and fast reactions of leaping out and charging back in, or even getting a pally to buff you with spell wording. But that's a bit too much for most of their player base. Increasing the buff time wouldn't really be a raise in DPS for the top end players since we've already found ways to work around some of the mechanics, but it would greatly help much more of the player base be able to play around and keep their Juggernaut stacks. Execute and rage uptime wouldn't be the only rage issue. Currently, our consistent AoE is poor unless you have the legendary belt. Our burst AoE is strong, but during consistent AoE, we have very little means of being able to generate rage other than hitting Bloodthirst every third GCD. If something can be done to allow Meat Cleaver buffed Bloodthirst to give us additional rage, even if it comes at just half the rage, that will greatly help. Another issue currently is having Rampage being on a longer GCD than the rest of our abilities. It adds a lot of clunkiness into our play and burst windows, and there really is no need for it. Something else that might seem minor but does affect our quality of life is just why do Fury Warriors generate so much threat? No matter what I do, even if I wait for a mobs to be at 20% HP before I DPS, I can still pull aggro during Skittish Week. During Skittish Week, I literally just log on to raid and log off. This is an issue even if we bring in a rogue and a hunter to tricks and misdirect. I'm not even going to touch on the additional damage that Fury Warriors take while in rage since our increased HP pool really actually does help here. In conclusion, Fury Warriors at their core have a lot of rage generating and enrage uptime issues that is currently masked by Nighthole gear. This is definitely an issue and I hope it doesn't get overlooked for additional tuning that will come with patch 7.2.5. Anyways, that's it for this video. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any other issues that I forgot to touch on here. Feel free to join my Discord server to chat more there. Thanks for checking out the video guys. Be sure to subscribe to see more warrior content. See ya.